Hey, Charlie, do you want to list off the names of the attendees so people can just see who's in the room?
Yeah, so we have Wendy Bukowitz from Cincinnati. All right. So today is a leadership roundtable, and the agenda is broken up into three parts. The first session I'm gonna be leading, and we're gonna bringing in some of our partners to talk about Innovation Underwriters, provide an overview of who we are and what we do for those who don't know us, and specifically focus on Creation Labs, which is one of our programs that we're looking for feedback on today. And that will run with the Q&A and the roundtable portion where we're getting feedback from the group about an hour. Then we're going to hand it off to Eden from AM Best, and he's going to provide an update on the criteria and an overview of how the innovation criteria works, and also provide us some results based on the assessments that they have done to date. And there'll be a Q&A there as well, and we'll learn more about the state of innovation in the insurance industry. And then finally, certainly last but not least, Anne-Marie Maxwell and Phil Budden are going to discuss an executive ed proposal that we have that is focused on the intersection of insurance and innovation and leadership in that space. And Phil, we always joke that Phil wears two hats. Phil is on the board of Innovation Underwriters, and he's deeply involved in helping us build programming. And he's also faculty at MIT Sloan Executive Ed. And so this initiative is the bringing of those programs together. And this is very much about, we've spent a lot of time and effort kind of building out our strategy and programs, and what we want to do today. We kept today's group small, and what we really want is some feedback, validation, and or, hey, if you could do this or change that. We're definitely looking for feedback today, and we will have feedback sessions built into throughout the next few hours. Insurance innovation, we're a nonprofit, like I said, we're mission driven. And I think this is very personal to me specifically. When we think about insurance innovation, clearly strategic kind of priorities, competitive priorities of corporations is part of it. That's why companies innovate, but it's much, much more than that. If you think about insurance is often the buffer between individuals, enterprises, and communities and calamity. And whether it's very small events that affect an individual all the way up to a global pandemic, how insurance responds or doesn't respond affects people's lives. So it really is about security and resilience and things much larger than just competitive kind of strategic issues. In addition to that, too, the industry is a very large industry. I think we have people on the call from Hartford today. Hartford is investing a lot of time and energy into insurance innovation because it is a leading employer, the industry, and the economy in Hartford and in Boston and in New York are dependent on a robust, vibrant insurance industry. And we want our effort to support insurance innovation, we want to support that as well. So renewing our economies is something that we constantly think about. And part of that means, providing gainful and rewarding employment opportunities, in particular to the next generation. The insurance industry is, the average age is my age, early 50s. The next generations, we want to be engaged in these these priorities, these issues in a gainful way. There's great jobs in the insurance industry, and one of the reasons we love working with the universities, MIT and Northeastern, is to educate and raise the awareness of the cool things that the insurance industry does do that a lot of the students may not be aware of. So that's what we think about. That's certainly what I think about when I think about insurance innovation, and what we are doing to foster, innovation in the industry is, one, we are building an ecosystem, and we are not really kind of starting from scratch because we are partners with Cambridge Innovation Center. They've been building innovation communities for 20 years. And if you go to Kendall Square, there's loads of activity going on with all the different players, including the MIT, including Venture Cafe, CIC, there's thousands of startups there and corporates. And we are continuing that by connecting in the insurance participants that we are building relationships with and have relationships with. And we do follow a 5-stakeholder model that is about connecting corporates, startups, academia, governments, and the investment community to address these challenges around, what is the future for insurance. So an ecosystem is a key part of it. And then within that ecosystem, we're focusing on 2 key initiatives. One we call a talent center, which is really, it's dedicated to developing leadership, talent, and culture at the intersection of insurance and innovation. And the third part of today is going to be a lot about that. So I'm going to table that for now and then focus on Creation Labs. Creation Labs is a co-creation initiative that is focused on two primary initiatives. One is forming groups to solve problems. So it's about doing, not just talking about innovation, but actually doing innovation, while at the same time building innovation practice skills through learning, through participating with people outside of your group on real innovation projects. And so we're going to talk about that. At the end, a lot of times I leave the call to action to the end, but I want to set it up. We will come back to this at the very end. But as you're listening to the day's events, I would encourage you to think about one of the reasons we are doing this event is to fill an advisory board, actually 2 boards. One focused on, staffed with or including participants with a background in the HR and the industry roles that are related to the cultural aspects of an innovative company. So learning and organizational development, HR, training, things that are focused on building the corporate innovation culture. That's one of the boards that we want to build out. And we have a few people, Emily from Hanover, Josh from Horton, and who else is on the call here? And the second group is innovation practice leaders, people that are specifically focused on innovation practice, so actually running innovation programs and doing innovation in their companies. So Adam Kostecki, Ray Law, who is an advisor to us now. So those are 2 groups that we want to fill out, and we want to add people to those groups. We also hope that you, as you look at our programs, that you will participate and support our efforts with, money, idea, and talent is kind of the what we need to operate, and we'll be talking more about that. And then very specifically for today, we are looking for feedback on our perception of what we're trying to do on how we have designed things, what you think will work, what you're excited about, what you think needs to change. So that's going to be the ask at the end, and I want you to think about that as we go through. Some of our ecosystem partners, I'm not going to go through them all here today, but I do want to thank Vitech Systems and Amica for financially supporting Innovation Underwriters. CIC has been a huge supporter and has helped us kind of launch over the last 9 months. Carter Edwards, who is a design firm locally, is helping us to build out the creation labs, both build it, design it, and implement it, the Creation Labs initiative. We are plugging Northeastern into a number of different areas, which you're going to hear about in a moment or two. And then MIT is going to talk later, which we're very excited about the program that they're building. Horton has helped us recruit talent in a lot of different areas. And then we strongly believe in the wisdom of the crowd, and we are building crowd mechanisms to support our programming in a number of different ways, including Idea Scale, Net Capital, and Insurance Discourse, which I'm involved in. And you'll hear more about that in the weeks and months ahead. But that's just some of our partners, and we're constantly building and looking for additional relationships as we develop out our programs. Creation Labs is a co-creation model. So what does that mean? We start with small groups, and we organize them across traditional boundaries. So we like to connect like people from the benefit space to people to the P&C space, so that there can be a cross-pollination across sectors. We also closely look at those 5 stakeholders. How do we connect corporates and startups? How do we connect, government and risk capital? So we're looking to create small groups that can focus on problems. So again, we're not trying to just talk about ideas and conceptually, how innovation practice should work. This is really about putting a group together, identifying a problem statement, and then working it to a solution. And we do that by having expert-led workshops that generate ideas and drive them towards action. And we are building a process, which we're going to talk about, which builds innovation practice through participation. So you get to not just do it, but you get to do it with people that are outside of your bubble. Everybody has their kind of teams that they're working with on a regular basis. Getting outside of that and getting a view from external, seeing how other people do it, more than just a panel to hear about how they're doing, but actually working together, rolling up sleeves to work together over time to solve a problem, is we think invaluable at learning how to innovate better. But it's not just about a practice session. We want all of our groups to generate intellectual property that we hope is commercially viable. We're going to talk a little bit about transitions later, but we hope that something of value comes out of every group that we launch. And that something of value could be a new startup. It could be a project within a corporate. It could be a number of different things, but our hope is that it will solve real problems. And with that, I'm gonna pause, and I'm gonna introduce Steffan. Steffan is director at Carter Edwards, and he's the head of design over there. And he's going to talk a little bit about the methodology that we've been putting together.
Sure. First, I'm going to just talk briefly about myself and sort of what our firm does, and that'll dovetail itself nicely into the methodology, because we're basically going to be using our methodology for Creation Lab. So we're a design We're a design consultancy that specializes in product and service innovation. We'll be the design arm of Creation Labs. We work with executive teams to stand up and redesign products and services, essentially, right? One of the capabilities that makes us unique is that we focus just as much on the design part of the experience for customers, as well as the operations and the technology that supports the customer experiences. Our clients specifically hire us to level up their own innovation capabilities using their existing teams and existing stakeholders, working across silos to beat the spinning and the stagnation that generally happens with teams that have been there for a very long time, right? So what you get from us is a well-coordinated handheld process for decision making and designing new products that lets your busy management teams participate in the innovation process without the burden of having to coordinate it yourself. Our methodology is really all about putting the participant stakeholders into a position of confidence that the ideas that we generate are going to be viable, feasible, and are going to work in the marketplace. So that's kind of who we are. If you've attended or been to a Dunkin' Donuts, or have you seen Keurig or any of the Panera apps? So that's all of our work. So if you've ordered on the Dunkin' Donuts app, that's us. But we've also worked with insurance companies like The Hartford. So if you've ordered small business insurance through their website, that's all of our work. We work with State Street, Fidelity Labs, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Commonwealth Financial quite a bit. So I'll talk a little bit about the methodology. So it's really in 3 phases, right? Left to right. Stakeholder alignment is the upfront gathering of stakeholders to form groups that make sense for very focused areas to work on a single problem, right? So that takes usually around 1 to 3 days, depending on the amount of time and the amount of participation we get. But we take folks through a process that gets us to agreement on what we're going to be working on. The second phase is co-creation design. So we will lead the group once we've decided on what we're going to be working on through idea generation, concept and evaluation and validation. So there's prototyping and there's testing as we go, and that's all sort of measured and timed. We do it the same way across all of the industries that we work on, and we found that it works quite well. We develop high-level requirements, and at the end of the 5 to 10 weeks, you'll have a development roadmap. So you'll understand what all of the different pieces you need to stand up a product, and then from then on, we can talk about innovation and incubation and actual development of those things. So we will have, at the end of phase 2, design screens. Everyone will understand how the product or service works, all of the pieces that need to come in together to actually physically stand up and manifest it. And then the third piece is figuring out how we're going to fund it and develop it and launch it.
Thanks. And one of the with a corporate led, like a single corporation sponsored project, it is very clear that transition from 2 to 3. It can kind of go into the company as a project or initiative. We're looking at a number of different models, and one of the things that we're definitely looking for feedback today and following today is, how does the transition work when there are multiple groups? Innovation Underwriters, one of the words in it is it's a collaborative. And we really do believe that kind of connecting people across those traditional boundaries and getting people to cooperate makes a lot of sense for the individual participants and for the industry as a whole. It also introduces some challenges about how things work, especially if a group develops a lot of IP and does some great stuff. We're looking at multiple different paths on how things could transition to that incubation stage where it's handed off to some people, whether it's a corporate, a startup, a group of startups. So we're definitely looking for insights on your thoughts about that as we kind of go forward. We're working with Carter Edwards to design a process and connecting people, connecting resources. We are building resources through our partnerships, and those resources fall into a number of different buckets, and we're going to highlight a few today. But certainly product design and development like Carter Edwards and what Steffan was talking about, technology and tools. We dramatically, like everybody else with the pandemic, rejiggered our digital strategy. We were planning on having a digital strategy in year 2 or 3. We accelerated that up and we started engagements with IdeaScale, which is a technology firm that is helping us build a technology platform to manage idea funnels and concept funnels. One of the groups that I want to highlight is our relationship with Northeastern. Chuck Kilfoye is on the call, and he's going to talk to you. He's going to give an overview of the experiential network at Northeastern and talk about how generically you can connect into it, how the groups can connect into it as a resource as they're developing a particular strategy around a problem. I'll kick it over to you, Chuck, and then I'll take it back and talk a little bit about how we are specifically using it to support the design of creation labs going forward.
Sure, that's great, Charlie. Thanks. Hi, I'm Chuck Kilfoye. I don't know if I don't have video, it seems, but I'll do the best I can. I'm Assistant Vice President of Employer Engagement at Northeastern, and one of the things that I oversee is something called the Experiential Network, which is a platform where we provide organizations like yourselves with the chance to work with our talented students on short-term and long-term projects, all virtually. And this allows your organizations to move forward with the types of things that you need to do, deliverables that you're interested in, while at the same time it's providing our students with the experience to work with real industry professionals like yourselves and organizations and solve real-world business problems with real-world consequences. Our work with Charlie and Innovation Underwriters is focusing around something for creation labs, where we have a team of project management students in a capstone working to help plan out a blended educational program for them. And Charlie can talk a little more about that after this. But that's an example of some of the things that we do. How the projects work, basically, we have access to over 200 academic programs at Northeastern. We've served 6,000 student participants with this program, working with over 2,000 employers since 2015. And I think something you might be hearing a lot in the industry right now is a thing called micro internships. You're all familiar with co-op and internships, I'm sure, which are long-term, on-site, what I would call high threshold engagements with student populations to do experiential type activities. But what we're doing is, as I said, short-term project-based opportunities with employers like yourselves to solve business problems that you have. Typically what we do are non-mission critical, non-time sensitive business deliverables or business problems. But everybody's got a million of those. It doesn't mean, using that terminology, it doesn't mean that these things aren't significant deliverables. They are. It just happens to be a way, I think, for us to give you additional capacity to get some much needed meaningful work done for you. And also, as I said, a way for our students to, while they're learning, to engage with employers like yourselves to solve these business problems, gain confidence, expand their resume credential by working on real world problems, and also potentially expand their potential employer network when they graduate. So a typical project, the way it works, we work with you to scope out a project, and And then we embed it in a typically a credit-bearing course as a signature assignment or a capstone. Usually the project, the duration of the project is usually about 6 to 8 weeks in a 12-week or a 15-week semester or term-based course. And we have a team of employer relationship managers who work with you to help, with the project execution, and also, facilitate with the faculty and the students to make sure that this thing moves along and is successful. Typically on the sponsor part, you spend an hour or two a week working with the students, all virtually, over Skype or whatever business tools that you already use to communicate and collaborate. Students who are going to class at the same time that they're executing your project, they'll typically spend about 5 to 6 hours a week working with you to get this done. Most projects, they can be done in phases, and typically we spend the students commit to about 30 to 40 hours a week. 30 to 40 hours total in a typical project engagement, right? But these projects can go over multiple terms. We can complete phases at different points, like the work we're doing with Charlie. We're doing phase 1 for the spring semester, and we'll follow up with phases 2 and 3 after that in summer terms and fall term. We do domains such as business analytics, healthcare, communications, in this case, insurance industry, leadership, project management, manufacturing, you name it. We have students who have skills and capacity to help you out in those places. So I think 3 big takeaways is XN, and by the way, it's all free. There is no cost to this. You don't pay the students. This is all done under the umbrella of an academic experience. So it's free to you, and it's a great way to help our students engage with employers and apply the classroom learning in real world settings. I think the big takeaways, Charlie, for us is that it gives you capacity to do more things. I like to call it expanding your bandwidth without increasing your budget. It gives you, another key point here is it gives you access to a pool of rising professionals in your domain. So you could look at it as a good way to acquire talent. And, it basically allows you to just engage with a tier 1 research university as well, and perhaps expand a relationship there. So, Charlie, anything else? Would you like to talk about what we're doing with you? Or?
Let me just talk a little bit about the project. So we are working, we're very excited about the initiative because it brings that capacity that Chuck was talking about. And it provides a resource to these groups that is, as he said, it's very cost effective, it's free, and it's not just undergrads, it's, as he said, graduate level data science people. They have a homeland security program, they have cyber security, they got a lot of intellectual capital there. So we're very excited about just the capacity to support the working groups the way we described, but we're also excited, as we've talked to people in the industry, talent is a key challenge going forward. And going to a career fair and meeting students on their, like last week of their senior year and saying, hey, we'd love for you to consider insurance, is not super effective, because there's, whether right or wrong, there's perceptions about insurance. They all want to go work for Amazon. But exposing them, so part of our mission is to just do the nuts and bolts of what we're trying to do in creation labs, but it's also to establish relationships with the students over time, starting early in their experience, and expose them to some really, what I think people will think is there's a lot more to insurance and risk management than people think. And some of these projects, if they get their hands in them, they can be very exciting. You're often talking about life and death and catastrophes, and some pretty cool opportunities to build out some projects. So we want to establish that relationship early with a lot of students and build a new excited pipeline of talent into the industry. And the project that we are doing, it's, we're just starting it. We're testing it out on ourselves to see how it works. we're fairly early on, but the early, it's very exciting. So we said, hey, we're building out this creation labs, and we want to build a project plan for the next, couple years. How are we going to build this out? And as Chuck said, this is like the first project we've done. And what we have is we have and I'm not sure his title, but he's the head of the project management group. And he's got 3 faculty members that I'm working with. So I'm working with Tim and 3 faculty members who each have a course. So we have 90 students. And what they're going to do is, they're each going to identify all the possible stakeholders that could be involved, engaged in creation labs, and outline roles, responsibilities, and actual practices that, like when we assign a group champion, what do they need to do specifically? Very specific details. And we'll take all the information and we will, take what we like, use what we can, but it helps us. We're less than a year old. We're a small group. We're building out a program. It gives us the capacity to really build out the process that Steffan and I have been working on, and others. We can put some meat on it, both in terms of what it is, but also like using all these tools that we use online to kind of connect them and automate them so that we can really, if you flash forward a year, we will be very efficient and effective at standing up a new group, launching it, and getting it up and running in a way that is efficient, effective, and lets us scale a lot, do a lot of groups, which will ultimately be our impact on the industry, is putting a lot of people through this process and develop and solving a lot of problems. So it's very exciting, and I think it's every time Chuck and I talk about a specific thing, there's one other thing we can do with Northeastern, and so we're establishing that relationship. We're building it out, and we're looking forward to groups to kind of get involved and do similar things. And it's not just about the Creation Labs groups. All the companies that engage with us can engage directly with the XN program as well.
Yeah.
Charlie, could I jump in and ask a quick question here?
Sure.
And Chuck, this is for you. Can you maybe just talk about a few other example projects, either that you've worked on with folks in the financial services, maybe insurance industry, just to give us a flavor of what some of these initiatives look like?
Sure. So it runs the gamut, right? It goes anywhere from, students doing research type things like creating a white paper or, doing a marketing analysis for a company or a group. And it goes all the way up to, technical projects. Like we did a large scale data visualization project for the Treasurer's Office in the state of Washington, right? That went over multiple terms and involved multiple teams of students. And basically resulted in a revision of their website in the Treasurer's Office. So it really runs the gamut. They can be technical projects, or they can be, as I said, research. Where Northeastern has over 200 plus programs. We primarily are working. We have a very robust data science program. So any kind of data science need, like analytics, that kind of thing. We have a lot of activity going on in that space, and that spans across all industries. It's really, an XN conversation generally starts out with what are you trying to do, right? Where are you bandwidth constrained? And where is a good spot for a team of students or an individual student to work with you? Scope, we would scope out a project with you, and then seek out the right courses and the right programs to match you up and create a partnership there. But it's really wide open. We've done global projects where we helped companies who wanted to expand into a particular region or particular regions in Europe. Check those areas out. We've gone the other way and had European sponsors looking to expand their business in the United States. And we've done competitive analyses for those and marketing analyses and those kinds of things. So, like I said, we've worked with over 2,000 sponsors since we started this in 2015. And thousands of learners have done this. We do hundreds of course sections a term with these projects. And as Charlie pointed out, there's all sorts of formats to do it. Like we could have one student work on a project, specifically with you, or we could have a team of students, or we could have teams of students across multiple course sections in an academic program, all working on your problem, coming at it from different angles, giving you different viewpoints, that kind of thing. So, you name the industry and the employer, and we've probably worked with them in some capacity, Does that answer your question or give you an idea? It's really wide open and up to what you folks are looking to do. And then we have a team of professional, employer relationship engagement people who would sit with you and talk about it and scope out a project for you. And they can be over multiple phases. Go ahead.
To that point, Chuck, and Adam, Chuck's team, I think is one of the invaluable parts in the process, because they do have hundreds of programs and probably thousands of professors and courses. They're like the first stop, and they help you kind of think through what are you trying to do and format the proposal to the professors that would be doing it. And part of that is like selecting the right course, the right set of students, the right place to place it, and then helping you kind of submit it to it so that it is successful. They do a lot of work up front to make sure that as it kind of goes into the system, it should be successful downstream in terms of both meeting the needs of the company and meeting the needs of the students. Well, that's the kind of ultimate win-win, where they're learning by doing and you're getting something done. And that upfront effort that they do speccing it out, and that can be, and what we want to do is get really good at kind of being an interface between all these industry companies and projects to Chuck's group, so that we get very effective at learning how they operate and working together consistently, repeatedly.
And CIC is working on a few industry analyses and white papers focused on insurtech, prop tech, ed tech sectors, similar to CB Insights, along with market analysis and different marketing programs. So we've plugged in Northeastern's XN's program to a few different facets of my work and the work of CIC in general.
Any other questions there?
No, not for me. Thanks, Chuck. That was a good explanation.
Thanks. Oh, and by the way, Charlie has a one-pager that talks about contacts and
we're going to send out a packet to everybody after this,
Yeah.
including the overheads and some materials from the different participants.
Sure. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chuck.
Sure.
Part of what we're doing with Northeastern and that group that I talked about is when do we launch a group? What groups do we launch? We have some ideas on it, and what we want to do is we want to get operationally efficient so that over time we can do a lot of groups. And that depends on how well we build this program and also, how the industry is engaging with us. We want to balance the groups. We want to manage it like a corporate innovation program and balance the groups across the innovation horizons and also across the value chain, so that we have a diversity of programs, of diversity of groups working on different issues, some that are in the core, some that are out on the horizon, and across all aspects of the value chain. Those advisory groups that we talked about at the beginning, we want them to have a key role in helping us identify where we should be focusing our time and effort, especially early on, where we're not going to do a ton of groups right off the bat. We're going to have to grow over time as we build out the program. So we want the advisory groups to spend a significant amount of time and effort on how the program evolves in terms of where we should be focusing our time. And there's certainly an art and a science to that. And we haven't worked out all the mechanisms, but we are building them. And part of what we want is the advisory group to help us identify specifically where we should be operating, but also what processes we should be putting in place to trigger a new working group to get kicked off. And clearly, with that in mind, we have different inspirations, different triggers that are helping us decide. There's an art and a science to that, we think. Part of it clearly is we value the sponsor relationships. They're putting in financial resources. They are going to be absolutely part of the conversation. We owe it to them to obviously, involve them in what groups we're launching. A lot of the sponsors, certainly some of the sponsors, are specifically engaging because we're focused on certain areas. But that's not the only consideration. We are beyond the sponsors. We are looking at building in mechanisms to crowdsource information about what needs are unmet in the industry. And you're going to hear more about idea scale over time, but it's a way that we can crowdsource ideas, and we can do that overarching the overall program, but also within individual groups to build idea challenges. And what we want to do is collect data and be very data driven in terms of what are people trying to do, both from our events, from our working groups, from different technologies we use to crowdsource insights from the industry that we will then feed back to the industry. We think we have a unique position when we talk about CIC, we often talk about we want to be a Switzerland. We want to be a place where everybody can participate. We want to be able to collect data about a lot of the innovation activities that are going on and feed it back to the industry. So the wisdom of the crowd, we believe in that. That is one of our inspirations to how we grow the program. And then the other area is research. So we are associating ourselves with, world-class research institutions like MIT and Northeastern, also the industry nonprofits like LIMRA and the III. And what we want to do is be that lens through which a lot of the research on broader issue gets filtered back to how does that impact insurance innovation practice. So that's our vision. We're starting to build out things, and we're definitely looking for insight from the group. We have launched a handful of groups, one on mobility, one on voluntary benefits, robo-advisor, emergency management. We had the head of FEMA under the Obama administration working with us a couple weeks ago, and cyber, and we're talking about a resilience one. So we are experimenting ourselves. All of the groups right now they all have a little bit different flavor on how they're being managed and how they're going forward. We want to optimize that and take the best, what practices work the best, both from the activities that are being done in our community, and as we get up and running with some of the executive ed programs, we want to build those things back into our process to really get, like I said, exceptional at launching these working groups and moving ideas to action. I have done one more slide. So we have shifted gears dramatically. This event, like I said, was intended to be a fantastic tour of Kendall Square. Check out the amazing CIC. Wow, all of you with CIC and Sloan, and then go have a fantastic dinner and connect personally over drinks and food. Clearly that didn't happen. And, you know, the whole world is kind of transitioning. How do we do this digital thing first? We're no different. We are taking this part very seriously, and we have been testing tools, looking how to connect tools, looking how the data flows, and, you know, how does this new world affect the people, the process, the data, and what technology do we use? We've been working with all our partners to discuss this, and we are, like any good innovation program, we are testing things. Some work, some don't, some kind of work, and we change it. We are doing all of that, and we are going to continue to do that, and we look forward to you both helping us do that, but also learning from what we are doing. And we are working closely with our partners to do a lot of these things. So that's been an initiative, and I see there's a lot of these photos are from actual calls that we've had, and we you know, it feels like it's been 6 months, but it's only been a few weeks. So I think we've made great progress in a short period of time.
Yeah, I'll also say that we're testing this on all of our clients, and the first week was rough, but now it's because everyone is being trained on all of these tools all at once. Everyone's getting very comfortable, and we're starting to hone our process, which will become Creative Labs' process for the innovation and design piece. So we're pretty confident about it.
Thank you. So this was, we went a little bit longer than we wanted to, but we definitely do want to open it up for what your initial thoughts are. We have a little poll, but we'd like to open it up for some comments and questions first.
Charlie, I guess just like to add to what you're saying here. I think and helping out with the board at Innovation Underwriters, it's a really exciting opportunity to be involved at the early stages in this initiative and really help to shape this. There are a lot of questions at this point that I think we'll work through as a group, but ultimately breaking down some of the barriers and collaborating across different facets of the ecosystem, I think is really important when it comes to innovation. And I think for us, trying to create a group on this practice leaders forum to really help drive forward in the next steps around what we'll do as an organization, I think are really important. And I think for the folks out there in the call, if you've got an interest in helping out with this, we're definitely, I know from the Innovation Practice Leaders Group, we're definitely looking for help. So would be really interested to hear just some of your feedback and thoughts as we kind of get started in the early days.
Any initial,
And Charlie, it's Phil wearing my board member hat. I just wanted to say, I think this looks like a fabulous thing for innovation writers to be getting involved with. I love the sound of the Carter Edwards approach this from our research at MIT into innovation. This is best practice, the kinds of things that Steffan is talking about there. And the way of actually engaging with the students from Northeastern who are fabulous, I think is a really great offer, which becomes a win-win. And picking up on your ecosystem point, it's a great way to connect very talented people coming out into what is going to be a pretty disrupted job market, and having them see at their young age just the sheer range of what a career in innovation in the insurance sector could be. So as a piece of innovation practice, I think the things you're suggesting here, to echo Adam, really are spot on.
nice, thank you.
Hey, Charlie,
Anyone
it's Ray Law.
Hey, Ray.
I'm having a little technical difficulty with my video, I think. So I think it's just voice. But I just wanted to kind of tag on to what Adam was saying in terms of, you know, the significance, I think, for the innovation practice is what we lack in this industry, particularly for the carriers, is some sort of standardization around, you know, innovation and some metrics. And so I think a lot of that will all come together. And I think I'm, you know, pretty excited about kind of what's been laid out and kind of the work ahead.
Nice, thank you. Any questions about the initiative, how it's going to work? All right. I'm going to launch a poll here, which is one question. It really focuses on what's important to you. We are trying to hit a couple of different things: experiential learning, solving problems, making connections. So if you could take 1 second to answer the poll, and this will help us as we move forward.